I quit drinking 16 days ago. This is my sobriety journey, and I invite you to join me as I document my process of living a life without alcohol. And I'm making these videos as a form of accountability to myself to stick to that and make this the change that I want to see in my life. On that note, I've already mentioned this before. These videos are more than accountability. They are the thing that I'm using as my support at the moment. And that's exactly the topic of this video. What does it mean to cultivate good support in your sobriety journey? And I will share with you the most important ingredients that I've discovered over the last few years and the things that I'm doing right now to make sure that this is truly the way forward to improve my life without alcohol in it, and to avoid feeling like life just got incredibly boring and what's the point of all of this. Support. It is probably the most vital aspect of recovering from any bad habit or addiction. You can't always do this alone. Humans are obviously social creatures, and that means we operate by working together with other people. There are, of course, many different forms that this can take, but fundamentally, there are two types of support that I'd like to address here. The one is from people who support you because they love you and they care for you, and then the other is from people who have been going through this problem, who also have the same issues or have at least had the same issues that you have. Sometimes they're the same people, and sometimes they're not. How do we work with all of this information? Let's get into it. I'll start off with the people who love and care for you, which is obviously a big pool of people from all walks of life. And there are three kind of distinctions here. The one is that some of these people will really get involved in your sobriety story. They'll be there to support you. Then there'll be people that are positive neutral on the subject. In other words, they say, hey, that's great. Good luck with that. And that's about where it ends. And then, of course, you get the people that question you and kind of go, are you sure? Is this the right thing? Aren't you making a mistake? Oh, come on, you're not that bad. Now, this doesn't make the third group of people bad people, but they're just not quite that invested in this because obviously it's going to affect maybe their life too. Unfortunately, those people have to be deprioritized for a while. This does not mean it has to be forever. What it means is that you need to put your focus on the top group, the people that are actually actively supporting you, especially in the beginning phase when you have just recently quit, as I have again. In my case, I have two friends who do not have this problem, do not have a drinking problem per se, who have shown an immense amount of support and are actually kind of actively involved in this, as we've engaged in activities over the last 2 weeks that have involved non-drinking, and that has made this entire process very easy. Then next up is your spouse, my wife in this case, who has been with me on this journey since the very beginning of our relationship. Now, her relationship in terms of support has changed over the years. In the beginning, she kind of questioned if I had a problem. Well, that was because I was lying, right? I was keeping so much information about how much I was drinking and to what extent I was drinking a secret. So obviously, I was eroding our relationship from an early date, and that gave her the impression that maybe nothing's wrong, and now where's this coming from? So there was this sense of, oh, my lies are also keeping her at bay from actually being able to support me. It was only in later years when I could actually start to express what I've been going through, why I'm like this. Obviously, first discovering it myself and then sharing that with the people in my inner circle of life so that she could then begin to understand and start supporting me in a way that was conducive. And that meant things like I didn't want her to not have a glass of wine just because I wasn't drinking. And at first there was resistance to that. She's like, no, if you don't drink, I won't drink. And I was like, that's not really helping me. I don't want to make a fuss about this. And so when I could express to her that I would actually almost prefer it if you still want to have a glass of wine with your friends, please do that because it makes less of a scene. And that's what I needed at the time. That journey has changed over the years. We have a constantly evolving relationship. But what is undoubtable is that her support for me in any way that I needed has always been there. And that has been immensely, immensely empowering and helpful to get me to the point where I am today. And the same can be said about my family, who at first were inquisitive and curious about what's actually going on here. And then over time, as this kind of developed, got more and more of the appropriate support, which was led by me. And that's the important part. These people haven't necessarily gone through a drinking problem or the realization of a drinking problem or whatever level they're at with drinking in their life. But there is definitely a need for you to guide what kind of support is needed. And the more that they are willing to work with that, the more you should invite them closer into your life for the next while, until things kind of change again in the future. And the more that they are hesitant and rejectful, if that persists, then deprioritize those relationships for a while, because things will change in the future again, and you will be a different person where that kind of support will no longer be needed. But if you've just recently quit, like I have again, then you need to build up that protection area. In the previous video, I was basically moved to tears by the fact that some people had started commenting and getting involved and sharing their story with me. Now, I think that that is already a sign of what it means to have people go on this journey with you who are also suffering, who have also struggled for a long time, who also know what that pain feels like. Now, this doesn't mean that the first category is less valuable, but there is definitely an emotional component that we need to kind of latch onto. There's a tribal feeling of like, this is my tribe. They really get me. And I don't have to lead the conversation. I don't have to nurture the support. I can just kind of be free to admit the things that I've done wrong. And this is obviously why things like Alcoholics Anonymous exist, where you can come together and be in a group where everybody gets it. You just get it. And there is no shame at all in admitting some of the terrible things that we may have done in our life so far. If you are on this journey, like I am, then it is vital that you have both elements working at the same time. Sometimes they can be the same people, but often there will be a big difference between the two, and you need to know that, recognize it, and work with it. The people in your everyday life are very important to keep the structure of your life together as you just go through the motions of each day. And the people that are there more in a support group who have shared this journey or are sharing this journey with you are there to help you on your own self-development, on your own recovery through this to get to next levels, which will then in turn change your relationship to the people in your everyday life. If you have not deliberately picked out people for each side of the equation, now is the time to do that. I have deliberately got a family member, I've got my wife, and I've got two friends that are on the one side for me that are absolutely there for me. And then on the other side, I have this. This is the support route that I chose for this journey. It may be enough, it may not be enough. The future will tell. And if this wasn't enough or isn't enough, then obviously I can go and join a AA group or something of that nature. I have been on this journey for a long time. I have been through quite a lot. So I feel the way my life is going right now, I'm in a good place, and this is going forward with a lot of momentum. On that note, this is accountability to myself. So a quick update. I have been going to gym regularly. I finished reading a book actually this morning. And the third one, yes, I have been sticking to my diet for the last 2-3 weeks. Feeling fit, feeling strong, feeling good, and enjoying my social interactions these days without alcohol, which is something we will talk about in a future video, how to deal with parties and going to events where the expectation to drink is there from other people. You know, you can't always be only in your support group. You are going to encounter the other people too. How do you deal with that? Like, for example, should or shouldn't you drink non-alcoholic beer? We'll get into that later. I did promise you that the next video was going to be about the 3 adventures. I needed to make this video first because I felt like I said I was so alone in the last video. And although that was true, it was more true for the side of the shared experience. When it came to the personal support, I've had people with me all along. And this was important for me to just kind of get that documented and said to myself. So next video, we'll talk about the adventures.